555.
Top 5 Big 12 questions for this week. And number 5, we'll try to be as expedient as possible with this, so Garrett can get off to his second assignment tonight. Number 5, who wins the 3-5 Bowl in Ames?
Well, is it on our predictions this week?
Yep. Oh, yeah.
All right, well, I guess I'll make that call tomorrow.
Yeah. But there are interesting things about this game. West Virginia, when they're going well, has really good offense. They have not had really good defense all year. Iowa State's had really good defense and no offense. So something would have to give. Is this maybe the week for Iowa State?
Maybe, yeah. I'll make my pick tomorrow. But, yeah, I mean, this is a coin flip. As far as I'm concerned, I know Neil Brown's starting to appear like he's getting pretty down right now in Morgantown. And I understand why there's frustration towards him and why some people want to change, but I don't think he's as bad as has been made out to be as a coach. I just think maybe this is just not working here. I
think Neil Brown's situation in West Virginia is very similar to Matt Wells in Lubbock. I don't think Matt Wells is a bad coach.
Yeah.
I think he can be a great coach, and he has been a really good coach at other places. It's just he was not the guy for what they needed at the time, and maybe that's what Neil Brown is, because Neil Brown's been successful at a couple other places, and so he's just not the right guy at the right time for them.
I received an interesting text last night, pretty late at night, and then also a couple of emails this morning about the Neil Brown future, that West Virginia is pretty much ready to move on. And, Craig nailed this when they beat Baylor. All that did was delay the inevitable. It didn't turn anything around. You thought maybe it would. And it's interesting how the West Virginia fan base, we've seen it on the chat room, thinks about who they want. A lot of them are thinking Hugh Freeze, but I don't think West Virginia wants to go there. We've discussed that too. But okay.
I think he's probably going to go somewhere else. I mean, he won 10, 11, and 10 games at Troy before he came to West Virginia. He didn't just suddenly forget how to coach. I think maybe it's just a bad fit, and both teams need to, go different directions. I like Neil Brown, and this game, I mean, this is like an ugly toss-up game, but the winner will be very interesting.
Number 4, is Jalon Daniels going to play? Sub-question, is Spencer Sanders going to play in that game? And that's probably going to affect I've already picked Kansas early in the week because I assume that Jalon Daniels is going to play. But how effective will he be? But if even now, though, if Spencer Sanders isn't going to play, if this is a battle of the backups, you're going to have to lead to Jason Bean. So it gets kind of weird in that game. But if Jalon Daniels plays, I think that's Kansas's game to lose at home.
Yeah, it all just kind of depends on how healthy is Oklahoma State, right? I mean, what is their status? It's not just a Spencer Sanders question. He's now a question more than he was last week even. And the rest of it all, I don't think has been addressed. I mean, Gundy said they're going to practice normally or, close to normal or whatever, but is it still the same numbers you were working with last week? Because I don't think that that's really going to help all that much if you're still so shorthanded. So, yeah, this is the Health Bowl. I mean, it's hard to call without knowing who's actually going to suit up, and Jalon Daniels is number 1 on that list. I guess 1A, and Spencer Sanders would be 1B, or flip that, however you want to. But I would love to see Jalon Daniels come back because they haven't won since he got hurt. They have gone on a skid, and if they're not careful, they're going to start 5-0 and not make a bowl game.
Yeah,
and that's a real possibility. So yeah, this is going to be curious to see who actually suits up in this one.
I know we have to go and get on to the next one, but you look at Kansas, and yes, the loss to Baylor, the score looks different, but again, they fought back. It was 28-23. Their losses this year, even when they've been kind of in this slide without Daniels, their losses this year were Baylor, 35-23. Lost by 10 at Oklahoma, and lost by 7 against TCU.
Yeah, I mean, they play close.
Yeah, again, you try to use those when you try to make somebody look better. But no, I mean, this is Kansas. They have been in these games, but now you wonder if they're just running out of gas.
Number 3, can K-State repeat their defensive performance? And I don't mean shutting out their opponent, but can they play with the same level of intensity against Texas that they did against Oklahoma State last week, because as much as we talk about that offensive explosion, their defense just put a chokehold on the Pokes last week. And that was, I think I even came away more impressed with that than I did with how well Will Howard and Deuce Vaughn and everybody else played. Cade Warner and
they had like less than 200 yards offense.
Yeah, it was such an impressive defensive performance. It's why I'm, they're home and their defense is playing well. I don't know how, this one's the hardest game to me to pick this week, but if they can repeat that, then Texas is in trouble.
Yeah, they played a great game, and they're going to be at home, and even still, they're slight underdogs last I checked. So, if they can duplicate that, then I think a lot of people feel good about their chances. But what are the odds that they do that? I don't know if they can go pull back to back, but they seem to be in a good spot right now, and very curious how they manage the quarterback situation on Saturday. But yeah, they can repeat that, but it's just going to be a lot tougher because this isn't some super banged up squad that's on the opposite side of them. This is going to be, I would imagine a very motivated Quinn Ewers. This is going to be Bijan Robinson. This is going to be Xavier Worthy. It's about to get a little bit more difficult.
35-0 at halftime against Kansas State. Then they put the pedal to the metal. It was 28-10, I think, or 28-10 at one point, late first half against TCU, and then they gave up that late touchdown and lost. So to me, they jump on your throat and just suck you dry at halftime. And can they start like that against Texas at home? And that sure would get that crowd going nuts, because Texas is the team that usually plays pretty well, and they struggle in the second half.
Yeah. Number 2, will Tech ride with Morton, or will they kind of do that musical quarterbacks thing again? I kind of hope they learn their lesson. Just ride with Baron Morton, for better or for worse. If he's healthy out there, let him take his lumps and get through it.
I agree.
I think they outthought themselves last week, and it burned them badly.
Yeah, if Donovan Smith, though, connects on that broken up pass, they score probably, and that game's suddenly really different, guys. Let's not forget that broken up pass, if they convert there, that might have just flipped the entire game. So I understand kind of where they were coming from, just trying to get a jolt and all that, keep Baylor on their heels. But yeah, they do need to probably have more of a streamlined idea of who really is the guy, and it's Baron Morton. I think it's Baron Morton, but you listen to Joey, and he's still talking about Tyler Shuck and what Donovan does, and it's just I get it, man. You can be a college team that has more than one quarterback and still be effective. We've seen that over the years, but man, it just seems like it kind of makes things a little confusing for the guys involved.
Yeah. And number 1, does TCU play with a chip on their shoulder, maybe even bigger so, after they heard what they heard this week? And if you're Sonny Dykes, you try to keep that away from them. But dear God, how can you? Do they play with a chip on their shoulder, or do they?
I think they already do.
Yeah, but does it get bigger?
I don't. I think that with Sonny Dykes, I don't think he's going to be one of those emotional up and down roller coasters like the previous coach.
No.
I think they play with the chip on their shoulder already. I don't think they need to add one.
Yeah, I think they already kind of have it just naturally. They had it with Patterson. They just seem like a team that always sort of has that edge. I don't think you ever just see TCU just get popped in the mouth and get thrown around, right? I can't think of many instances of it, at least off the top of my head. I can certainly think of it for a lot of other teams in the league, though. But yeah, I think that they'll have a chip on their shoulder, and I just think it's a matter of not having to rely on a comeback is probably the biggest thing for them, is to just not put themselves into a position where they've got to hit some explosive plays. They can. They hit a bunch of them last week. They hit a bunch each and every week, but they do sometimes get themselves into a hole. And when you're explosive like they are, you can get out of it pretty quickly. But eventually you're probably going to run into somebody who puts you in a hole, and you start to dig out, and they kick you back down into it again. And, whether or not that's this week remains to be seen. But I do think Tech's going to be fired up to play. There's going to be, I'm sure, a good Red Raider representation being in Fort Worth. Just kind of the back and forth between these two teams. I think TCU's the better team, clearly, and should win at home. But I think Tech's going to, make them scrap, and I think they'll be ready for that.
Congratulations to Belleville Highs.